In just a few hours, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and the Joint Chiefs of Staff chair will give an update on Operation Epic Fury and Project Freedom as the U.S. works to guide ships out of the Strait of Hormuz.
And we're learning that 2 U.S. Navy destroyers transited the critical waterway overnight after reportedly dodging incoming Iranian fire.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yinks is live in Tel Aviv with the latest. Hey, Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. Tension continues to rise across the Middle East as Iran is firing on vessels in the Persian Gulf. This comes as the United States is working to guide ships out of the Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz as part of Project Freedom. Overnight, CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper described the U.S. firepower protecting the operation.
It's a defensive operation. We are employing U.S. ballistic missile defense-capable destroyers, over 100 land and sea-based aircraft, multi-domain unmanned platforms, and then 15,000 service members to extend this defensive umbrella across the Strait of Hormuz. We have an enormous amount of capability and firepower concentrated in and around copters.
I spoke yesterday with President Trump, who told me that if Iran attacks U.S. vessels in this area, they will be, quote, blown off the face of the earth. The president went on to say, we have more weapons and ammunition at a much higher grade than we had before. We have the best equipment. We have stuff all over the world. We have these bases all over the world. They're all stocked up with the equipment. We can use all of that stuff, and we will if we need it. We do know early on Monday, 2 vessels were successfully escorted through the strait, but since then, Iran has ramped up attacks on the UAE, a U.S. ally in the Gulf. 15 missiles and 4 drones targeted the country with damage caused to a key oil facility. The bottom line here, the Iranians are testing this fragile ceasefire as the United States is preparing for the possibility of a return to combat operations. Guys?
So, Trey, the goal is to form an umbrella and let it be known that we can protect you if you go through the strait. While it's good news the destroyers made it through, we destroyed 5 or 6 fast boats. The bad news is, as long as there's that type of fire and resistance, you're not going to have any tankers go through, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of oil right now on these vessels in the Persian Gulf. The Iranians miscalculated because they thought the United States would back down. But what the president has done is twofold. Not only block Iranian ports, but also Project Freedom, escorting these vessels out of the Persian Gulf and through the strait. Now, the Iranians so far have tried to test the American resolve in this area. But as the CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper noted yesterday in that briefing, there are more than 15,000 U.S. soldiers, sailors, and Marines in this area that are helping to escort these vessels. They are not actively riding alongside the vessels, but they are overwatching them. And so they have the ability to shoot down the incoming Iranian fire. But again, Iran is not only targeting vessels in the Persian Gulf, but they've now turned to start attacking with ballistic missiles and drones these countries in the Gulf, including the United Arab Emirates. And so there will be tense days ahead and questions about if there will be any sort of response to these ongoing Iranian efforts to disrupt shipping in the Persian Gulf.
Yeah, I mean, Trey, the UAE Defense Ministry has confirmed that their air defense systems did intercept the ballistic missile. Violation of the ceasefire?
Yes, it is a violation of the ceasefire, and it's not the first time that Iran has violated the ceasefire. Despite the ongoing diplomatic efforts and the olive branch that President Trump has offered the Iranian regime, they continue to play games not only at the negotiating table, but also on the battlefield. And we've heard from top commanders in the U.S. military, and we'll hear later this morning from the Secretary of War Pete Hegseth alongside the Joint Chiefs Chairman, General Kane, about these efforts by the Iranians, but also about the preparations by American forces. And Ainsley, when we look at the maps of what's been going on the past 2 to 3 weeks, we are seeing a massive U.S. military buildup across the Middle East. And this is because President Trump is prepared, understanding how the Iranians negotiate. He understands the Iranians want to drag out these negotiations. And ultimately, if they don't come to an agreement, we're likely looking at a scenario where combat operations resume. And that is why you see not only these tankers and these refueling aircraft that have basically spread out throughout the Middle East, but you also see these cargo planes, the C-17s, that are arriving each and every day in the region to ensure that the U.S. military has the bombs.
Does it suggest that since Iran decided to attack UAE targets instead of attacking those 2 destroyers, that maybe the U.S. does have a better channel, a more secure channel than we realize? And secondly, I would assume that every time we send a ship through that channel, we learn a whole lot more about their strategy and where their attacks are emanating from.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, the Iranians are under an immense amount of economic pressure as a result of the successful U.S. blockade of Iranian ports. They're reaching a point where they have no more oil storage facilities left to hold the oil. And this ultimately will put more pressure domestically on the Iranian regime, a regime that saw earlier this year people go to the streets despite the fact they were met with live ammunition and demonstrate against the economic conditions inside of Iran. But there's another major question here, and that's whether or not other countries around the world are going to get involved in doing the majority of the work to ensure the safety of these merchant vessels, not only in the Strait, but also in the Persian Gulf. And we're talking about hundreds of vessels and more than 20,000 sailors that have been trapped there in the Persian Gulf. And the United States is basically the main actor behind the firepower that is ensuring these vessels now can get through. There are other countries who have come under attack. We're talking about South Korea, for example, that according to reports today is considering, according to their domestic law, if they can get more directly involved. But there are other countries that use the Strait of Hormuz. This is a critical waterway that accounts for around 20% of the global oil that is used by the world. And yet these other countries are not participating in ensuring this waterway is safe. And so President Trump and the administration in Washington is calling on these countries around the world, including the Europeans, to get more directly involved as the Iranians are continuing their attacks against merchant vessels and allies in the region, including the UAE.
Yeah, we just don't know what they're capable of doing. You know, what we did yesterday, can any other country do what we did yesterday? Trey did hit the place, the actual pipeline, which the UAE has been using to circumvent the strait. So they know exactly what they're doing. And guess who's providing almost all the logistics, the satellite? Russia. Yeah. So at one point, we have to address the problem. Russia's providing the exact satellite, where our bases are located, I don't know about communication. We're able to see the communication. And at one point, if you talk about escalating, find out where those rockets are coming from. Find out where the drones are launching from. And you got to go destroy those launches.
That's right.
And that will show an escalation.